And we have Kathryn Snorreson, who's from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and she's going to be talking about a program called Motorbella, which I think is an offshoot of something that you all did with the auto show previously. Of course, we haven't had any auto shows in a couple of years because of that virus that's floating around. So I'm sure, since this is all fairly new to me and Matt, and we cover the auto industry, that why don't you tell us a little bit about what Motorbella is, Kathryn?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much for having me. Like Mike said, my name is Kathryn Snorreson, and I'm the Managing Director for Michigan's Office of Future Mobility and Electrification. And I'm within, like you said, MEDC. And Motorbella is actually a new event here in Michigan, building off of the success of NIAS, or the Detroit Auto Show, as some people know it. But this new event, Motorbella, will bring next generation mobility and electrification, and exciting vehicle debuts to media, showgoers, and automotive enthusiasts around the world for an experience that they've never had before. It's actually going to be at the M1 Concourse in Pontiac. So plenty of space for exhibits, outdoor networking, and demonstrations for these companies, because it's actually on a track as well. And the dates for that are coming up in just a few months. So you'll see press and industry days along with automobility that I'll talk about in a second. All three of those events are the same days on September 21st and 22nd. That's a Tuesday and a Wednesday. And then you'll see public days September 23rd to the 26th.
Matt?
Okay, so tell us a little bit about what the agenda is for this event. What kind of activities are we going to be doing? What kind of events are we going to be having? Will there be an auto show style display of vehicles in an indoor setting or an outdoor setting?
Yeah, so it's mostly outdoors. I know the M1 Concourse will have a new conference center for some of the panels inside, but most of it will be outside, right on the M1 Concourse. And you'll see exhibits. You'll see some exhibits from OEMs, the automakers and tier ones around the track. But then you'll see an exhibit called Automobility, with a D for Detroit, that's been in existence for a few years. It's a tent right next to the concourse, right next to the OEMs and tier ones, that'll exhibit a lot of innovative mobility and electrification technologies and companies from around the world. So when I say mobility, think of next generation transportation technology, electric, shared, connected, and autonomous. So these are companies that will have exhibits that you can walk through on industry and press days at Automobility, and that's sponsored by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And then we also provide some programming. So in addition to the exhibits, the networking, the demonstrations and panels you'll see, we're also going to have match meetings for these startups. So if you're a startup listening and you're in the mobility or electrification space, we definitely want you to apply to exhibit. And that means that you can then qualify for match meetings, which are set up by the MEDC, where startups can actually meet corporates, investors, and public sector organizations across Michigan to get connected and accelerate the rate of partnerships in business. So startups can apply for that exhibit space up until the deadline was just moved to the middle of August. So the website, if anyone has a pen, or I can share this with Mike later, is at nias.com/startup application.
And that's short for the North American International Auto Show, which we just call the Detroit Auto Show. I know the folks in Detroit wouldn't much care for that, but it's much simpler than explaining all that. But certainly the auto mobility portion was in previous auto shows. I think a couple of years ago it started, like 3-4 years ago, I believe, and right. That was taking over the basement, and you had all these exhibits down there. I spent a lot of time down there myself.
Yeah.
That was the more high-tech, future-focused part of the Detroit Auto Show, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they would put in the big exhibit hall, they would put here's what we're selling now. But Automobility was really about autonomy, electrification, in short, the future, right? And that's going to still be the case this time.
Exactly. Yep. Think about, that new generation mobility technology. And that's really MEDC's sponsorship and support around the show, really advancing mobility an electrification ecosystem here in Michigan by showing what is that new technology that you're going to see on the roads. And it's just not just movement of people, it's also movement of goods. So think of autonomous bots, maybe delivering your Grubhub order or food or supplies that you might need, whether it's on the streets or even in a hospital or any kind of campus area. So yeah, these are technologies that, are not just happening in the future, but are happening today, but is very forward looking in what we're going to see.
Yeah, certainly May Mobility from Ann Arbor now has an autonomous, I'm not sure what to call it, bus, kind of a bus, that runs around in Detroit and Grand Rapids, right?
That's right. Yep, exactly. And those have also been protected around a lot of protections for COVID-19. They've been working with different companies to ensure that shuttles like that, of course, that are shared, are a safe space for people to move around wherever their shuttles operate. Like you said, in Michigan, that's Grand Rapids and Detroit.
So this is really where Michigan's future is then, in terms of certainly what the MEDC is supporting, but then, of course, what the auto industry is developing. I mean, if you look at it, their hybrids were big for a while, and now they've leaped past the hybrids and directly into the fully electric vehicles. There are some issues. We have the battery issue, which limits the range, and some various other things. But how is MEDC going to help? Or is that what you're hoping to encourage with these startups, is they'll solve some of those problems?
Yeah, startups are definitely part of the equation, and why support for Motor Bella and automobility is so important. But there's so many companies that are part of this larger equation towards solving some of these larger transportation challenges for residents here in Michigan. And we hope the solutions start here, but obviously spread around the world. And that was one of the reasons our office was actually started by Governor Whitmer. So our group, just the quick history, our group actually started back in 2016 as a brand campaign for the state of Michigan. We used to be called Planet M under Governor Snyder. And then in 2017, we started rolling out some business development services to help mobility companies, come to Michigan, grow here, find success here. But then when Governor Whitmer took office, she signed 2 executive orders to double down on Michigan's investment in mobility and to continue investment around electrification by creating our office called the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification. And as a group, we're housed across a couple different state agencies. We're actually across collaboration across MEDC, LEO, the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, MDOT, of course, Michigan's Department of Transportation, and EGLE, focus on infrastructure and charging and grid impact. That's Michigan's Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy Department. And so collectively, our vision across these 4 state agencies is to create a stronger state economy through safer, more equitable, and environmentally conscious transportation for all Michigan residents. So we have many objectives that we're trying to hit. Everything, like you mentioned, from growing the industry here in Michigan, engaging more startups, expanding Michigan's smart infrastructure, accelerating electrification adoption here in Michigan, which includes education around adopting those vehicles, whether it's a fleet or personally owned, and expanding the infrastructure, and making sure we have the workforce to support this growing ecosystem here, all while bolstering Michigan's mobility manufacturing core. So we've got a lot of objectives under that vision, cross-department effort across 4 state agencies, but some very important work here for the state of Michigan.
I was just curious what kind of relationship you have. We have a couple of really top-notch automotive testing centers here that are sort of cross-industry functional. We've got the one at Willow Run, the American Center for Mobility. We've got the one at the University of Michigan, M-City. I was just wondering what kind of relationships this office might have with those 2 organizations.
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually gives me a chance to talk about one of our new programs. So we work very closely with the test sites across the state of Michigan because we think it's a great way for companies to start their journey here in Michigan and ultimately find success by testing their mobility and electrification technology at one of the test sites, and then in a real world environment as well. But both of those play a really critical role in helping companies grow here in Michigan. So we actually have a grant program that we started back in 2018 and rolled it out from 2018 to 2020, and then we just relaunched in April of this year. And it provides funding for companies who are looking to test at these test sites across Michigan. So for us, we're partnered with M-City on that at the University of Michigan. Like you said, the American Center for Mobility, Kettering University, their track is also known as the GM Mobility Research Center. We are also partnered with an organization that helps with drone or aerial testing across the state called Michigan Unmanned Aerial Systems Consortium. And then a few test tracks in the Upper Peninsula. So they've got lots of room to test and lots of capabilities. So the QNR Research Center at Michigan Tech, the Great Lakes Research Center, and then the Advanced Power Systems Research Center. So if you're a company looking to test at any of those test sites, we definitely encourage you to work with them and apply for our grant program called the Michigan Mobility Funding Platform. And that can be found at michiganbusiness.org/mobility funding. So you can get some funds toward testing here in the state.
What sort of funding money is available? I don't mean overall, and then is there a maximum level that you would provide a startup, or what's the parameters?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we don't have a strict minimum or maximum. Basically, what we ask is that if a company is looking to test at a test site or deploy in a real world environment, that they themselves figure out what they can contribute toward the testing or deployment, bring all their partners around the table, see what they can contribute as well, and then apply to the state for gap funding. So the grants in the past have ranged for a testing grant. They've ranged from 10 to 100K. And for a real world deployment, they've ranged from 40 to 125K. So just to give you a little bit of range on what we've seen in the past, but we don't have a strict minimum or maximum. We just want to see what those solutions are that are being proposed to be tested and deployed here, what others can bring to the table, and then apply to the state for that gap funding so that we can see those solutions, like I said, start here, grow here, but then ultimately help residents around the world.
Okay. So what do you see as sort of the next step for this? I mean, they keep talking about autonomous vehicles being right around the corner, and the corner seems to keep receding a little bit, maybe. So where are you on this as opposed to electrification? Electrification certainly seems to be the hotter ticket right now.
Yeah, I think electrification, well, both are accessible, right? So, I mean, today people can buy vehicles that have some level of autonomy. Your vehicle might even have some level of autonomous functionality that you might not even realize. I know mine has lane keeping in my Ford Edge. And so there are different levels of autonomous driving available even today. And then, like you were talking about, there's hybrid and then fully electric cars. So that technology is already accessible, and it's just going to keep increasing as time moves on. But those are definitely, two big objectives of our office: to increase adoption of those technologies. And that includes just so many pieces, everything from making sure that there's the right education and public sector, community engagement around these technologies to show what the benefits are, right? Whether you're an individual owner or a fleet owner, and then making sure the infrastructure and is there as well, whether it's charging stations or if a vehicle is talking to infrastructure, that those sensors are available at intersections. And then, of course, the main focus is safety, right? That everything is safe as they're rolling out these new technologies. So it's definitely a big goal for our office to work toward increasing adoptions of those technologies. And we hope to see that start right here in the state of Michigan.
All right. Well, we're coming down towards the end of the segment. Everybody always says, gosh, I don't have 14 minutes worth of material. And I go, trust me, it goes by quickly. Again, now you've got everybody all excited. They want to get their startups involved in this. How do they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say if you're looking to exhibit at Motor Bella, like I said, that's coming up September 21st and 22nd. That's a Tuesday and Wednesday for you to exhibit. Please go to nias.com/startup-application. And then if you want to learn more about our office, please go to www.michiganbusiness.org/OFME.